Have you really taken the time to get to know yourself? Do you really like what you see in the mirror? Are you mindful of the thoughts that you have? Are you focused on moving forward? Well, this week on Motivation and Confidence, we have Dr. Brenda Bowers talking about how to transfer your life. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. And I'm your host, Tom Danger.
You have a very distinguished and accomplished background, Dr. Bowers. 35 years in the healthcare industry. There's so many things out there that I've read. Your LinkedIn page is crazy, like how many credentials and comments that people have given you in areas that I've never seen on anyone else's profile.
Wow.
That is just kudos to you and the work that you've done and the representation that you present to our people. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. I wish I could do more.
I have a question here, and it talks about self-awareness. What is self-awareness to you?
So self-awareness is when we have really taken the time to ask ourselves, do we know who we are? And I think we should really ask that question and answer it very seriously. Do I know who I am? And I have people rate that on a scale of 1 to 5. And if I'm in a setting to where I'm doing this for a group of people, I have us transparently, I say, okay, on the count of 3, hold up your fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you know who you are? And then do you want to know who you are?
Right.
And then after that, I say, how well are you, or the first question I ask, there's 2 sets of 3. So the third in this first set is, how frustrated am I with me right now in this second? How frustrated am I with me? So, do I know who I am? Do I want to know who I am, and how frustrated am I? And then, am I somebody that someone else should want to know?
Right. And do you think that most people are afraid of who they are?
Absolutely. And therefore, do not know who they are. And that's why then one of my questions is, do you want to know who you are? Do you want to know who you are? Because we have to get to a place of wanting to know who we are in order to be aware of who we are. If I don't like me, I shouldn't expect you to like me, but I do. But society tells me I can hate me and I can expect you to love me. Well, that's abuse. And we wonder why we can't deal with that in the workplace or at home, because we don't deal with the awareness of self. Do I know how I come across to others? Do I know how I come across to myself? Do I know why I feel the way I do about me? So I have a series of assessments that are really easy that I can do an open forum. I have a 2-hour, no problem. I have a 2-hour interactive that I do called Getting to Know All About You. And it's a 2-hour that I have done without charge for companies if they like. And then after that 2-hour period, they can engage me in something deeper. And if they're really committed, they will. And I had been able to do that and actually had gotten a couple really good contracts the month before I had my accident. So that was just, so now I'm working myself back up. They said based on all the different things, the toxicity within myself, that it might be spring before I'm able to do what I've been doing, but I can do things from home. And when people tell us what we can't do is nothing but a word, we're gonna make sure to excel. They tell us, do 5 sit-ups, we do 25, all that, because we have to. But this Getting to Know All About You is a 2-hour session where in the beginning I ask some simple questions like that aren't that threatening, but then we peel that onion back in a very fast-paced 2-hour period of time, so that by the end of that session, an individual is so much more aware of themselves. They've decided if they want to have a relationship with themselves, because if you don't have a relationship with you, you should never have a relationship with anyone else. Your first
Mm.
relationship should be with yourself. If you are not your BFF, you should not have one.
That is
So
probably the deepest thing that I've heard in all my years and of all the interviews that I've done. You must have a deep relationship with yourself before you can get with anybody else. And I think most people always miss the target there. They think the opposite. They think that if they partner with someone else that they're going to feel whole. But once you're broken, you're broken. So you can't go and put a broken part into a new car and think that that part isn't going to be broken. It's still broken.
it's still broken. And not only is it broken, you're tearing up the rest of the car.
Yeah,
And that's not fair to the rest of the car.
right.
So when people do not know themselves, then they should not be in a relationship with anyone else, not with a spouse, not with their children, not at job, anywhere. You
Right.
need to know that the most important relationship on the planet is between you and your God and you and yourself. And until that's solidified, forget the rest.
So why do you think most people don't take the time to know themselves?
Because we're taught not to. We're taught to be servants outward and not to be self-preservers inward. Now, my dad told me that that self-preservation was the first law of nature, but my mom taught us that self-sacrifice was the first law of giving. So we tended to be givers, and
Right.
then we didn't preserve ourselves. So as I got older, and my dad passed away at the age of 50 when I was 14, I got older and I didn't know how to marry the philosophy of my mother and my father because it felt like betrayal if I said one versus the other. But then I realized that it's a both and. We have to know how to be selfish enough to be selfless and selfless enough to be selfish. And that there's not a curriculum yet, but there should be, because we need to know how to love ourselves first. Unfortunately, we're taught how to give ourselves away before we even know who we are.
Right.
Who
But
are
do
we
you
giving
think that?
away?
But do you think that that self-love, like one of the pathways, is through meditation, by being still, by being with one with yourself?
Absolutely. You have to have, I am a very firm believer that the first hour of your day and the last hour of your day should belong to you. You should have it so sacred that whoever the other person is, if they really respect you, then they will honor that first and last hour. In fact, they will be doing it themselves. Take that first hour, don't grab your phone first. And if you know you have to grab it at 5, then get up at 4. But find an hour that is yours before you do anything. And you invest in yourself. Invest in yourself through meditation, invest in yourself through prayer, invest in yourself through music, invest in yourself through reading. But whatever it is, it's how you are pouring into you. That first hour, you should pour into yourself.
I'm guilty 50-50, right? So I wake up every morning and the first thing that I do is I say my prayer and sometimes I meditate, but then I write and I read. Now, because I do everything on my phone, I have to get my phone to do it. Just because of technology, it's sort of like with the Kindle, you can read in the dark. So you can make everything dark behind, as opposed to me turning on the light to wake up my wife. So I'm not jumping on social media at 5:30 in the morning, but I'm definitely, and I'm big on numerology. So whatever number I see when I first open my eyes, I'm like, what is the angels trying to tell me? So I'm looking at all this stuff, and yeah, I get it. But I'm a firm believer in that first hour in the morning between me reading, writing, prayer, meditation, and exercising. That's all me. And it's been that way for the past 7 years. I don't get that to anybody.
And what have you seen as a major difference, or what one thing, if there was just one thing that you would point to as the best outcome of those 7 years of doing that, what would that one thing be?
I used to have a really, really bad temper and difficulty in just being patient.
Mhm.
right? And I think by doing that, I don't get as easily excited. I don't take things necessarily with a grain of salt. I also believe in like each emotion has its own place. And as long as it's expressed in a way that is non-harmful to others, I believe that all expressions should be felt. Just, some people get mad if you raise your voice, but if you're angry, you should express yourself when you're angry. I don't think you should repress that, because then it comes out in a different way. And I think by me taking the time to learn myself, it's like, no, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's, like all of these things are totally part of human nature. And that's that's like, again, to answer your question, the biggest thing for me would be my temper. I'm not easily excited is what I used to be.
I
But
think
I
that's
think,
phenomenal. And that's a huge one because most people do not understand what you just said, which is every emotion has a right to be expressed. I'm a numerology lady as well, so hats off to you. I'm always me and my numbers, but and not from a gambling standpoint.
right,
I have numbers. Numbers speak to my life all the time. But understanding that every emotion has a right to be expressed is critical, and most people don't learn that. One of the tools that I give leaders is when you don't know how to manage an emotion and you're frustrated with yourself and you are projecting that on someone else, put yourself on a timeout. Go somewhere and give yourself 60 to 120 seconds, and that's all you get. And you act a fool and do whatever you want to do. And when you get to that 60 or 120-second maximum, you're done. You got to throw it in what I call you have to throw it in to your garbage bucket. I have a burden bucket that I physically bring every time I do this 2-hour presentation. I have little waste baskets and they're burden buckets. And so you need to write down these things that are making you not know who you are, not like who you are. So this when you have to go on a timeout, usually you'll find that there are patterns of what make you do that. So, usually it's because I didn't listen to somebody because I got angry before I could listen. Since I got angry, I absolutely couldn't listen. And
right,
now I'm in a situation to where it's too late, too bad, so sad. So
right.
once we can correct that, not on the other person's part, because I believe in the way that we're going to mend the world, and I believe that we can, the way that we're going to perfect society, which I believe we can do a better job, is by transforming ourselves. So it's a transformation process that we have to individually accept and own and go on the journey of really doing, really meaning it, really sharing like your story and saying, hey, I did this and I used to have a really bad temper. And I count that as the one thing over a 7-year period of time that I have really cured and managed by giving myself the first hour of every day. Wow,
Absolutely.
that's powerful. That all by itself. If you did nothing but taught that one thing over and over and over again, look at how transformative that would be to society.
Yeah, yeah. So, question for you: when you talk about an authorial presence, how does one obtain is that the correct
Yeah, it
terminology?
is authorial presence. Authorial presence is actually the my most favorite part of my model because authorial presence simply means never give up the authorship of your presence. When you have a pen in your hand, never surrender your pen. Do not tell someone else they can write your story because they can't. Never allow anyone else to write how you're going to show up at a meeting. Never let anyone else write how you're going to lay down or get up when you go to bed and when you're sitting at a breakfast table. Never give up the authorship or the authority of your presence because how you show up is 100% up to you. I say everyone has a AAA policy and the policy is intact, the premium is paid, and AAA is always accountable, always.
Gotcha.
Always accountable, always, period. Keep it
So,
simple.
what was your inspiration behind the book?
Um, Finding out how corporate America had not changed and that there were some individuals within that sect that wanted to change. The sponsors who had our organization before it was acquired, they were so committed. They were incredibly in tune with the needs of the world, and they were very committed to putting the right type of people in leadership to make their mission come to pass. Then for me to do the amount of work, decades of work in an organization to really build a leadership platform that went to every level across over 25,000 employees, I realized that part of that intellectual capital, your company gets to keep all this great work that you do, but there's so much that we don't have to surrender. And I took the time to find out how much of my intelligence was really my own philosophy, and how I could take my own philosophy and then interpret that into a book. And that's what I spent a year really doing, stepping back and figuring myself out. I felt like a loser. I felt like I had about 5,000 people in leadership, 9,000 total, and then plus those of color who we brought in from different states, different parts of the world. I was like, wow, how did this happen on my watch? And then I had to really forgive myself and recognize that it was bigger than me. But the first thing we do is, we commit suicide to ourselves. And then when we do that, we don't have life to give back. So
Right.
I had to get over that part and realize, no, I'm not done, because if I am done, then you've really won.
Right.
So how can I not be done? And that was to write the book. But I will tell you, a book is an expense. It's not a revenue generator. It's a dream. It's a hope. You get it. And I'm looking at relaunching mine again in 2020 because so many things have happened. It is now a tool that if I don't get others to buy into, because my particular book is a more of a comprehensive guide that can be used in companies, but it can be used with families. It can be
Right.
used in religious situations. It can be used in not-for-profit organizations. But there really is guidance that's needed, and I am going to work on a follow-up workbook, but it isn't a just sit down and read it. And while you got from page 1 to the end, you really do need coaching and counseling and support along the way. So that's what I was hoping it to be, more of a launch pad. And now I just have to get back on track because I'm healing to make that
Okay.
happen. And I get the opportunity, you have no idea how much I really value and appreciate you inviting me to have a
Oh,
voice on
you're
your
welcome.
platform.
Well, you're welcome. I already know that your story is going to inspire so many people. I had a lady that just wrote me yesterday or day before yesterday, and she was saying how her and her husband was in a car crash about a year ago. And after getting out the hospital, she just felt so depressed on life. She started listening to the podcast. And from listening to the podcast, she said before she went for a walk every day, she would listen to it, and how much inspiration it gave her just to want to do better. So I know that your story is going to inspire someone else to do better, because by you saying just push forward and not giving up, nobody talks about after you get there, right? We always talk about the grind. And once we get in the grind and get our foot in the door, and here's what we got to do to get in there. But what do we do after we get in there? And then what do we do after everything that we work for has crumbled? No one
Yes.
talks about that, right?
Mm-mm.
And you've shared that within the past 30 minutes. So people are going to be mind blown to know that even with all that you're going through, you're still pushing forward to do something amazing for yourself and for other people. It's going to motivate people, it's going to inspire people, and it's going to push people.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. And I take that from the Who You Are platform, the motivation and the confidence, because you're definitely pushing that. And it's something that we need to hear. It's also important to know that however successful we are or have been, we need to be motivated and we need our confidence reassured and reinforced. And we need that from each other. So again, I appreciate you have motivated me today, and you've given me confidence to say, okay, I guess tomorrow might be worth it, because we don't always wake up feeling that way. And I say that that feeling is even stronger when you have made it, when you have done the, like I hear Steve Harvey say that he had to live out of his car 3 times, 3 different times. And I take that very serious. Or, you know, I think about Tyler Perry. He's talking about how long he lived in his car. Or Tiffany Haddish, I just heard her talking about living. You know, when people can talk about they had to live in their car and then they made it and then they lost everything and then they made it and then they lost everything. I still think we look at that being in the entertainment industry versus, no, some of us actually have real PhDs that weren't just given to us. So, you know, some people are crazy like me and they have 2 doctorates that are earned degrees. And you can still be found in a place that you have pushed to the top, you have been the role model, you have been the mentor, you have been the motivator, you have been the yes, you can do it. And then what happens when you look and no one can say those same things to you? And oh my, what if the world finds out what really happened to you after you were there, after you were the idol, after you were the look to? So it's a real place in life that we should not minimize, but I agree we don't talk about enough.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about the transformation, you know, the process of a butterfly starts in the cocoon, right?
Absolutely.
And who's to say how many times in life, how many transformations that we're supposed to go through? So maybe you're just being prepared for your next butterfly.
For the next one.
You didn't think about that.
Yeah, I believe that, you know, one cocoon is one person's theory.
That's right.
You might be on your 3rd or 4th one. It doesn't matter if in the end we're going to fly out.
That's it. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a great pleasure speaking with you.
I've just enjoyed meeting you. I've enjoyed our time together. Thank you. Blessings and peace to your family. And I really do look forward to following you and being able to push people your way. You have been a blessing to me in our time together. Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Check us out on various platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Overcast, Castbox, SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, TuneIn, or Alexa Media.